Gary, I know I got to let you go here soon, but I want to end on this final thought, and that's moderation, because we've been talking, about different diets, and a lot of them are pretty extreme. But what about for the average person out there who, they're maybe maintaining a pretty healthy weight, but they're thinking about cutting carbs down a little bit? It seems pretty, on off whether insulin's released into the blood or not when we're, partaking in a high fat, low carb diet. But is there any room in between there for somebody who wants to still include some carbs? Is it basically worth their time to like cut down on carbs but still include some in the diet?
Yeah, although I would, and absolutely, this gets back to the question you asked about individual variation. And I should have said that clearly the world is full of people who can tolerate carb-rich diets and stay healthy and live to 120 or 100, you know? I mean, we all know them. They tend to drive us crazy because they can eat foods we can't. So that's kind of the argument here, is that those of us, that is the argument, those of us who gain weight easily, who, predisposed to become overweight, obese, diabetic, the reason we do so is because of the carb content of our diet. And if we want to stop that from happening, we have to have more or less rigid abstinence to those carbs. Some people are fine with them. They can metabolize them, they can stay healthy, their hearts, their blood pressure stays low, their blood sugar stays under control. So, for those people who are a little heavier than they want to be, it's just a question of experimenting. I'm always surprised, and it's one of the reasons I wrote this book, the idea that, we have to be on a ketogenic diet. I was actually being interviewed by a Washington Post reporter who said she read the book, but it was hard to believe, who kept saying, so why do you think everyone should be on a ketogenic diet? And it's like, I don't think everyone should be on a ketogenic diet. It's crazy to think everyone should be on a ketogenic diet. It's like some people, if you are overweight, obese, diabetic, predisposed to get that way, then this is physiologically, biochemically, endocrinologically, the diet you should try, the way of eating you should try to fix it if you want to. And that's a key issue also. And for the rest of us, I like that phrase. I repeat it over and over again, more or less rigid abstinence. If you're pretty healthy now and you're happy with your weight, then less rigid abstinence. But the other idea I wanted to get across, and we broached this with the cephalic phase insulin thing, for those of us who really have significant weight problems and really want to try and fix them, then we're talking rigid abstinence. Then it's like, smokers who want to quit, alcoholics who want to get healthy, then we have to almost treat them like an addiction. Actually, a lot of the physicians I interviewed said, I don't think of my clinic as a weight loss clinic. I think of it as a carbohydrate addiction clinic. For these people, we have to learn to live without them. And the good thing, which I also say, is as you get rid of the carbs in the diet and you replace them with fat, and your body starts metabolizing fat for fuel instead of carbs for fuel, you'll start craving fat-rich foods rather than carb-rich fuel. So your cravings should actually change with time. Your sugar, sweet tooth should slowly go away. I know this is hard for people, but my view is, I used to be a smoker. And so I know what it's like to fight, struggle, and for years to miss something. But I also know what it's like to get over that and be, pick your scatological term, delighted that I don't smoke anymore, So, and I feel that, so that's, it's sort of, sure, many people, have your potatoes and love them. If your body can do it, that's terrific. But if you really want to be healthy, the healthiest you can be, and if you really want to be the leanest you can be, which for many of us won't be as lean as we'd like, then it's rigid abstinence.
So it really depends on the person. For all of us, this can be a great tool on the tool belt.
Yeah. And the other point I made, I talked about this in the book. I was at a diabetes conference in Aspen, one of my favorite places to go, but it always makes me feel disheartened that I chose a career in which billionaire was not one of the possible, endpoints. Anyway, I'm at this diabetes conference. I'm talking to this young woman who had been in a nutrition study that actually a not-for-profit that I co-founded had helped fund, and it had compared a very low-carb diet to a very low-fat diet. And this was hosted at Stanford, and this woman had been obese since adolescence, childhood. And she showed me her weight chart on this diet. And the first 3 months, she was randomized to the low carb arm of the study. And the goal of that study was to get them on a diet that was as close to keto as they could get. And for the first 3 months, she lost 30 pounds over the first 3 months. And she showed me, she had it all charted on her phone. And then at 3 months, they decided they didn't want to lose subjects from the study. It's very expensive when you have a study that's supposed to last a year and your studies drop out because they don't like the diet. So at the end of 3 months, they started recommending that they add some carbs back into the diet. So fruit, if nothing else, like berries, because they thought that people who thought the diet was too restrictive might be tempted to stick around. So from a science perspective, you can argue it made sense, but over the next 3 months, she only lost 5 pounds. And then the researchers recommended that they add more carbs back. This was a sort of misreading of the Atkins program, and very bizarre, and had I known about it fully when we were funding them, I would have argued a little more vociferously. But so over the next 6 months, she lost no more weight. So she loses 30 pounds over the first 3, 5 over the second. She goes from, I think it was 240 to 210 to 205. She's maybe 5'7". And then she never loses another pound. So from her perspective, it wasn't really worth it. Okay? But my point was, had she stuck with that rigid abstinence, not even added the berries back, she might have gone from 240 down to 140. We don't know where that curve would have stopped. She might have only lost 5 pounds. We don't know that either. But it's conceivable that she would have gotten to 140. And at 140, she'd have been as lean as she'd ever been, and she might have decided that the berries weren't worth it, and that bagels aren't worth it, and pasta isn't worth it, and she doesn't miss them because she's healthy and relatively lean. And now you have just an entirely different mindset. So one reason I hesitate to, people often when they start these diets, they say, well, can I eat this? Can I eat that? What about this? And I say, that's the wrong way to think about it. Imagine you're quitting smoking. You're not going to say, can I have a cigarette on Tuesdays? Or is it okay for me to have a cigarette when I drink with my friends? Because you're never going to get there. So for 3 months or 2 months or 1 month or 3 weeks, abstain. Find out what your body wants to do without carbohydrates in the diet and how you feel about it. And if it's doing good things and you feel good about it, keep doing it for another month or another 3 months. And you might get to the point that I got to and a lot of people get to, where you're not complying to a diet or adhering to a diet, you're adhering to being healthy. And your body works best without these carbs. And then again, when I said originally the book was called How to Think About How to Eat, that's how I wanted people to think about it. Can you get to a point where you're healthy? And then you can make the decision, is this worth it? Or maybe I can compromise. Maybe I miss ice cream. I'll have ice cream once a week. I'll get 5 pounds heavier, but I can live with the 5 pounds if I get my ice cream. But first you get healthy and lean or leaner, and then you make the decision.
I like that idea. Take it as far as you can, see the potential there, and then decide if you want to play with it a little bit.
If you don't do it, you'll never know.